Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on writing on social media and use of non-linguistic features. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand this notion. Well, my dear students, non-linguistic aspect of human communication has always been present in human society. And when we talk of the basic three levels of communication, that is linguistic, paralinguistic, and extralinguistic, where linguistic aspect or level of communication deals with purely the language items, their structuring, their syntax, their pronunciation, etc., their choices, etc. The paralinguistic part is more concerned with how that language is used, which means how that language is produced, how that language is presented in the spoken or in the written form. For example, if it is presented in the spoken form, so what is the tone, what is the pitch, what is the intonation, and what are the stress and unstressed patterns of voice. In the same way, moving from the linguistic to the paralinguistic, when we come to the third level of communication, that is extralinguistic communication. This extralinguistic communication is what we are going to talk about now with reference to social media. Extralinguistic or non-linguistic communication, both the terms are used. And non-linguistic communication is the use of different non-linguistic features for the purposes of communication, which means neither the language nor the performance of the language. Language is treated at the linguistic level. The performance of language is treated at the second level, where paralinguistic features are taken care of. Extralinguistic or non-linguistic features are those features of language that can be other signs or symbols or colors, or when it shapes and forms, etc. when it comes to writing. And when it comes to speaking, in one-to-one interaction, face-to-face interaction, it may be, the gestures, the body movements, the blinking of eyes, hand movements, etc. So all of these are counted in non-linguistic features. So now we move on to, the virtual world where social media operates. Sending and receiving messages without using a communication system that has the characteristics or features of using these non-linguistic features is a common part of this social media world. In fact, this non-linguistic part is important because it conveys, whether it is the social media world or outside that, it conveys the emotions, the feelings, or the thoughts and attitudes of people. It is a reflection of, sometimes of the identities of people as well. How in certain ways people behave physically when it comes to be into conversations with people, for example, tells us about their identities. So, when it comes to visual communication or non-linguistic communication, there are certain aspects that need to be taken care of. For example, signs, typography, drawings, graphics and graphic designs, illustrations, colors, etc. And in fact, all of these are being used as resources in the new media or in the social media. My dear students, generally it is said, it is an old saying, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I think this applies to social media. And at this moment, I'm not going to talk about the pictures that we take otherwise of us and of people around us and, of different objects, and we post on social media. Of course, they, in those particular contexts, make particular meanings. Right now, I'm going to focus on those features that are shared by the whole virtual community as non-linguistic features, such as emoticons. So, when we come to the origin of the word emoticon, this is actually a portmanteau word, which means it is a combination of the two words. It is derived from two words, emotion and icon. And in fact, in the web forum messaging and in online games and in all the online texting processes, these emoticons are used. An emoticon, by definition, is a written symbol. Often 2 or 3 punctuation marks, numbers, or letters are used for that. It is very interesting for us to know that writers of messages, they show their moods and their feelings and even their facial expressions through these emoticons. Emoticons are also in the virtual community of interaction considered to be a time-saving shorthand. Well, with the emergence of further, technological, tools within this communicative world of this virtual world of interaction, these emoticons that are were originally created only with the signs manually. Now we find different signs and symbols expressing different moods. As you can see on the slide, here I have just given one symbolic picture. Hundreds of such kind of emoticons are now available for use on social media that express different expressions of weeping, crying, being angry, being happy, smiling, etc. So, when it comes to how they are generated on social media, I am sure you know, but just to share with you how it operates, I would share this one example. For example, this use of a colon with a dash with the closing part of the parenthesis, this makes a smiley face in writing. And when a sad face is to be made, the rest of the things, the colon and the hyphen remains the same, and the opening part of the parenthesis is used in the digital form. Now, when it comes to the digital forms and their origin, how these emoticons are being used, in fact, I would refer to Scott Fallman of Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who for the first time on September 19th, 1982, used for the first time such an emoticon and proposed that these emoticons can be used in this virtual kind of communication. Now, what is interesting is what he said was that, to him, human interaction was restricted in these messages, these SMS messages or these internet messages, because human emotion could not be communicated until and unless otherwise somebody would particularly mention it. So, he suggested that these kinds of particular forms of writing can be used to attach human, emotions to that. And according to him, he thought that this would fill in the gap where, in face-to-face conversations, the other person can see our expressions, can see our gestures, which add to the meaning-making process. In the text messaging or in internet communication, he thought that this would solve the issue. So, this was more like, revolutionary change in the history of, the use of non-linguistic features in social media all across the globe. And soon they became very widespread, and actually they became very widespread in the late 1990s. And with every passing day, there have been tremendous changes. As I have said, that now they play a significant role in communication where, already, ready-made, I would say, emoticons are available, for example, for use on WhatsApp or for use on different other forms of, technologies on social media. So these stylized pictures or these stylized emoticons have changed the dimensions of the non-linguistic communication that takes place on social media. And this is of great significance when it comes to sociolinguistics, because it provides insights into the tone, it provides insights into the attitude, and it provides insights into the perspectives that the writers or the users of these emoticons in different, in different interactions that they do, when they take these perspectives, we can decode their identities from that. Well, there are different styles that are used within that. For example, the Western style, it has the eye on the left followed by nose and mouth. Generally, two character versions are used in SMS like this. Only a colon, for example, and a closing parenthesis is used. This is a Western popular style. Common examples of the Western popular style would be where, for example, in this case, you can, for example, just add a nose to this. There are particular variations that can be given by, slightly changing the shapes and the forms of of these emoticons by changing different letters in them. I would just share a few examples. For example, this equals to sad. Double use of this opening parenthesis equals to very sad. For example, weeping can be shown like this. I'm sure all of you know. A blush can be expressed with this. And there are dozens and dozens of such signs that are used, in this process. What is interesting about all this is that, all these, were different signs. For example, this semicolon or this parenthesis or these colons or full stop, etc. Initially, when, in all these, technologies, the telecommunication equipments, or on these mobiles, for example, when they were initially provided, they were provided as parts of the linguistic aspect of communication. They, as commas or as, semicolons or colons, they were a part of the linguistic part of communication. But their use in a different way has converted them into another kind of language, I would say, or a non-linguistic kind of communication. This Western style is not the only style that is available, because for that you have to tilt your head to the left to understand what it is. So to facilitate further, Japanese style was introduced. And in the Japanese popular style, they can be understood without tilting your head, to the left. So this style arose on ASC2.net as an early Japanese online service that was in 1986. Now these emoticons are created differently. For example, you can see without tilting your head, within two parentheses, these two asterisks show two eyes, and then this can be the mouth. So this is one of the very simplified ones, one of the very basic ones. Then there are, different other letters. For example, letter T, how it is used. For example, for crying or sadness, how it is used. Different meanings are also created. For example, this is used to show unimpressed. Looks of stress are given as it is shown here on the screen in this way. Nervousness is shown in this way. So here the semicolon represents an anxiety-induced sweat drop in this case. These, slanting lines can indicate embarrassment by symbolizing blushing. So different kinds of characters such as hyphens or periods or, colons, etc. are used, and through their placement, meaning-making process is done. Overall, what I would say is that from sociolinguistic point of view, all these uses and usage, all these practices of the use of non-linguistic, communication features, they have a great significance, and most of them need to be studied in the global context, though we also need to look at the variations that take place from culture to culture.